Hello, and welcome to our show, Crooked Doctors. Today is Friday, July 20th, 2012, and this is Bill Dorrity.
William Dorrity, how do you do, people?
And we've been making the war on all fronts.
We have.
So it's been a jam-packed week.
It has.
What I'm going to do is review a little bit of some of the significant events that are happening in my case.
Yes.
And my case dovetails with your case.
It parallels, it certainly does.
Because where I left off in Jersey with some of the landlord-tenant issues,
Sure.
You're picking up.
Exactly.
And what we did this week is we did an interview with Mr. Vincent Ansetti, which is Bill Dorrity's...
The lawyer handling my court case, yes.
And we've got a nice 16-minute interview that we're going to play where we review the objectives.
Exactly.
And the objectives are to get independent cameras in the courtroom.
Yes.
And to get establish tenants' rights to collect, to recover attorney's fees.
Yes.
To get enforcement of
Truth in renting people.
Right. Truth in Renting is a publication that is supposed to be given to each tenant in the state of Jersey.
Yes.
And if a landlord does not provide this booklet
Yes.
to tenants about their rights, he can be
subject to a $100 fine, which is huge when you consider the fact that $30,000 can be the ultimate. If you did the math, if you do the multiplication, it will come to about $30,000.
In your building.
In my building alone, and if you multiply that by other buildings, it is certainly a great revenue source for the city itself.
Now, so Truth in Renting, Newark City Councilman Darren S. Sharif asked, what are my tools of enforcement?
Yes.
And one tool of enforcement is to enforce truth in renting. And if a landlord does not give this booklet to his tenants,
yes.
he can, and to each tenant,
yes.
that he can be fined $100.
$100 a pop.
That's right. So in Bill's building, there are about 200 or 300 tenants.
You say 300 units. And if you multiply that by, what did we say, 100?
100,
You're talking $30,000.
In Bill's building
in
alone.
one building alone.
So, enforcement of truth in renting. And then the fourth issue that you're driving forward is
security guards.
Security guards in your
building.
building.
And this is important because in places where they have violent crime rates, it is not the tenant's responsibility to monitor who comes in and out of the building. It is the landlord's responsibility. And this has to be written in legislation, in the laws, and also in case law. Currently in New Jersey, we have no such law.
Well, so what Bill's trying to do is, Bill was taken to court, is being taken to court on a frivolous reason.
We were.
And his landlord is accusing him of letting a person in the building.
Letting, strangers and other people into the building, which is bogus.
And it's not Bill's responsibility to stop people from coming into his building or to let people into the building.
Another thing is, I'm on the 4th floor. So how am I responsible for people coming in and out on the first floor, on the ground floor, as it were? There's no security guard there.
And if there were a security guard, then there would be no reason to take Bill to court because the security guards...
The question would be moot.
Right.
Yes.
So we have a 16-minute interview with Mr. Vincent Ansetti, who's Bill's attorney. But first we're going... And I noticed you were telling me, you called me yesterday because you had a meeting with New York State Senator Brian Stack.
Senator Brian Stack had a face-to-face between the hours of 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. For constituents in his district, at his district office in Jersey City. Now, I was aware of this because the flyers went out to his constituents.
And you met with Brian Stack
I
yesterday?
met on a face-to-face, and I mentioned the security guard bill which he has in the state. And Senator Stack assured me this is his priority, that it will go to the budget committee, which is a much larger committee, before the end of the year, before the year's end. And he's committed to pass this law, which will become law, state law, next year.
So as I understand it, State Senator Brian Stack is proposing a new state law
Yes.
You want also a city ordinance to be passed.
Yes.
And you're having a block there with some, don't get into the details yet, but you're having a block there with some of the city council people.
Yes.
So Brian Stack is going to reach out and make a friendly phone call or two.
He is. He promised to make a
And
phone
just
call to a particular council
we'll
person.
We'll get to that
we'll
in
get
a
into
minute.
that in a minute. Go ahead.
So, State Senator Brian Stack has proposed a new law requiring security guards. He's also proposed a new law in Jersey that would allow tenants to recover attorney's fees.
Yes.
And to make sure that this new legislation, these new laws don't get
No,
stuck.
no,
Let me
yes,
finish.
Go right ahead.
To make sure that this new legislation doesn't get stuck, what you're doing, Bill, is you're letting yourself be taken to court so that you can establish case law.
Exactly.
And we discussed this with Mr. Vincent Ansetti, your attorney,
Yes.
and said part of the reason why you're standing up to your landlord and you're going to court is because your landlord is taking you to court for retaliatory reasons. It's a retaliatory gesture.
Yes,
it's frivolous reasons. He claims. Let me just help the audience.
Go ahead, sure.
He claims that you were responsible for letting a person into the building when, in fact, as you pointed out, you're not at the first floor. Your apartment is on the fourth floor.
It is.
You have no clue who's coming in and out of the building. It's not your job as a tenant to monitor or to let people into the building or stop people from coming into the building. And in fact, the incident that the landlord is questioning you about, you actually called the police and said, oh my goodness, there's a person in the building, they don't have my permission to be here.
In fact, I had this person arrested. Why should I have to have a person arrested and the landlord get off scot-free?
So you are completely blameless. You called the police and said, this person shouldn't be here. They don't have my permission to be here. I called the police. So how can the landlord now say, oh, it's your fault that the person is in the building when you did everything you possibly could to say this person shouldn't be in the building?
That'll certainly be an interesting plea before the judge. We'll see what happens on that, people.
So there's no grounds for eviction.
There is absolutely not.
But you're going to court. You're being milked for attorney's fees.
Sure I am.
So it's perfectly reasonable for you to ask that when you win, and you will win because there's no grounds for eviction.
Of course.
This is just the landlord throwing mud at you again.
Sure it is.
You're going to ask the judge to award you attorney's fees.
To be made whole, yes.
Good, okay.
Exactly.
Now, it's about 7 after, we're about 7 minutes into the show, and so what we're going to do is, in 2008, when I was being dragged into court for the fourth frivolous eviction against my attorneys, against my landlords. What I did was I asked my attorney to ask for attorney's fees.
She did.
And I got the statute from New York, Real Property Law, Section 234, which is basically we copied it and asked Senator Stack to propose it. And basically, I brought the law from New York to New Jersey.
Yes.
People joke and say, who do I think I am, Moses, bringing
Yes,
the law here? I got the Moses joke.
Yes, she is.
But I went to New York and I got Real Property Law, Section 234. I brought it to my attorney and I said, could you please include this in my final submissions to the judge so he would know that even though there wasn't law in New Jersey where a tenant could recover attorney's fees, we could cite to the nearest state, which was New York.
New York.
And what I was trying to say to Judge Fass is, even though there's no state law in New Jersey, I'm citing to authority. I'm citing to New York, which is the nearest state, and I'm making an argument that on basic fairness, I was taken to court for the fourth time in summer of 2008 with a proposed lease. I was challenging the proposed lease, and in this interview with Mr. Ansetti, your attorney, he says, "Listen, if you look at your lease, if your lease says that your landlord can recover attorney's fees, you should challenge that."
That's what he said.
And you should ask that you should have the same consideration. So I was doing that in 2008, and had Mr. Lawrence Sidoni not deliberately, maliciously, intentionally, knowingly, willfully, with criminal intent,
that's what he did,
deliberately omit that statute, Real Property Law, Section 234, from my final submissions to Judge Fast, we would have had this protection for tenants in 2008.
Sure.
And the reason why Mr. Lawrence Sidoni backstabbed me, deliberately lost my case, was so that Judge Fask, to create a hole, so Judge Fask could say, well, she cites to no authority.
That's right.
In fact, I really didn't need to cite to authority. I could have just made a basic fairness issue, and I could have argued the basic principles of contract law.
That's right.
Again, Mr. Lawrence Sidoni has made it to our wall of shame.
A wall of shame, people.
Do not hire Mr. Lawrence Sidoni from Northeast New Jersey
No,
Legal
don't hire
Services.
him at all.
And this is legal aid that they give to poor people. So we're correcting that. We would have had this protection in 2008, and as you pointed out, I drove my case forward.
Yes.
Now you're going to. We're working as a team.
Yes. You see, one point I want to make is Lydia has been operating alone for several years. Now she has traction because my case is moving the ball forward, you see. So this is huge. This is going to make history, people.
And what's important is, people think that history is, the moral arc of history, it moves towards justice. It doesn't move towards justice. It moves because people like me push it.
People move it, yes, indeed.
Because heroes like William Dorrity and his attorney, Mr. Vincent Ansetti, move history, move events, move it towards justice.
We're challenging the situation, yes.
Okay, so we're going to play that interview with Mr. Ansetti, but before we do that, my case crosses state lines.
Yes.
And we went, I don't know if I should say this right now, but
say it. Go ahead.
I'm having conversations with the U.S. Marshals in the Southern District of New York.
Yes.
And I'm very worried about one of them. And his name is Marshal James Howard.
There's a name, people.
And Mr. Howard and I have been having conversations, and I don't know what to say to or about Mr. Howard, because when I was appealing my case in front of federal judge Robert P. Patterson, Jr., who's a dishonest judge and needs to be taken off the bench, and I was appealing my case as a pro se litigant, I would put my papers into the pro se office, and my papers would be thrown away, my arguments would be misconstrued, any stupid dirty trick that could be pulled would be pulled. So what I did is in November of 2009, after I'd been physically assaulted and almost murdered in Jersey City, and I was living in New York, I took documents that made my case and I glued them onto a poster.
Okay.
A 3 by 5 foot poster. And I brought them down to the U.S. Marshals in the Southern District of New York. And I didn't just give them to the marshals who were wearing the blue jackets, the assistant U.S. Marshals. I stood in the lobby at 500 Pearl Street and I asked for the marshals to come down. Several of them did, and I have this huge poster, and I explained to them the reason why I'm doing this is because my documents are thrown away. The Judge Patterson is being given an erroneous argument. The flow of information to a judge is being manipulated to cause me to lose my case against this racist university. I glued the documents to this 3 by 5 huge poster. And I'm holding it there and I'm talking the U.S. Marshals through the litigation points, and I say, what I'd like you to do is take this poster and because I've got Judge Robert P. Patterson, Jr., who refuses to uphold the law, and 3 appeals judges who refuse to uphold the law, I'd like you to take this big poster, walk it through the halls, and bring it to Judge Patterson so he has no plausible deniability. And what the marshals did is they did not do that. According to the statements that Mr. James Howard made to me, that poster went to Marshal Howard's office. He stated that it was in his office for several years, and he stated that ultimately that poster was thrown away. That poster was not thrown away. That poster was given to someone. I'd like to know where that poster went, because on that poster is the irrefutable documentary evidence that shows Judge Robert P. Patterson, Jr. refused to uphold the law. So it's not business as usual in the Southern District of New York. We have 4 federal judges who refuse to uphold the law. Now, Marshall Howard had this poster in November of 2009.
He did.
I didn't go to jail. I wasn't incarcerated until May. My trial, the farce of my criminal trial, was in April of 2010. So that means that if the marshals had called the Department of Justice and turned in those 4 dishonest federal judges in November of 2009, I never would have gone to prison. So how is Marshall Howard going to face me? Now, here's what they said.
What is it?
I'm illegally convicted. I illegally spend 11 months at Rikers Island. And as I'm fighting my way out of Rikers Island, the mental health department forces contact with so-called mental health professionals. And they draft this false record. And at Elmhurst Hospital, there's a false record that says, I am a threat to the life of a federal judge.
Yes, of course.
Okay, that's not true. And the corrective action that Marshall Howard wants to take is, and he's stated, that's inaccurate, that's not true, we will correct the record. Well, that's nice, Marshall Howard, but the problem is you've had a poster in your hands from November of 2009 that showed that Linda Tacoma lied. And one of the things that Ben the superfan wanted to know was, can we see a deceptive practice? So I'm going to show you one of the deceptive practices.
Watch this, people.
Okay, so what we got here is, I'm going to change the camera view. And here's the deceptive practice.
Here it is.
Okay. Now what will happen is, Linda, Assistant District we got.
Should we put the poster up?
Yeah. Hello. Oh, wait.
What's up?
Is this my superfan?
Correct.
Okay, I'm going to change the camera view and I'm going to describe to you the deceptive practice. I also have the phony 911 call. You want to see that first?
Let's go. I was waiting. I thought you were going to run that 16-minute piece, then I was going to call.
I'm gonna run the 16-minute piece.
I didn't want to hang on the phone for 16 minutes. I was going to call, but then you never ran it. You started talking, and
Because because here's the problem, Ben. I don't need a psychiatrist. I need a priest. What am I going to do about Marshall Howard? I mean, this is like breaking my heart. I'm trying to talk to the man today. He's trying to talk to me. I'm trying to talk to him. What do I say, Marshall Howard? You've had you had a poster in your hands. I mean, Ben, what do I do? Marshall Howard is breaking the hearts of America here.
Yep.
I mean,
If you think you got problems, I'm waiting for Mrs. Povenetti to carry up my 40-pound bag of laundry. She's doing my laundry now so she can pay for her rent.
No, but seriously.
No, Mr. How about that Dr. Pello? You know who he is?
Dr.
Pello? About the delusional beliefs?
It's Dr. Jelnov at Jersey City Medical Center. And the deceptive practice is Marlene Abramova is a Russian, Orthodox Jewish Russian girl.
Is that the one who called you a terrorist?
Yeah, and here's her problem. She made a false police report in 2006 to Detective Lee at the fort in Queens, at the Forest Hills Police Department. Yeah. He put me through an investigation that cleared me, and at the end of that I said, can I please have a protective order against this woman because you know she's going to do it again. And he didn't give me one. Had he done that, Marlene Abramova and the other wonderful hoodlums I'm dealing with in Jersey City would have never lied to the Jersey City prosecutor. So Marlene Abramova has the delusional false belief that she can use the evidence in my case to vindicate herself. She could have, but for the fact that she plagiarized from me and filed false police reports against me.
I'd like to know how they thought that Bill was the one that was holding open the door over there. I mean, like who ratted him out, or do they have any video of this, or
we have
why him out
video
of 300
cameras, yes.
people in that building? Why him?
Because he's a tenant leader, and as you'll
landlords go after tenant leaders.
right. They wanted.
I never heard that one. This is a new one to me.
No,
now.
they do. I mean, a bill informs people about their rights. The landlord is supposed to give out truth in renting. For each truth in renting book.
So he's had some bad words with the landlord already about tenant stuff.
Bill has history of being persecuted by the landlord. How many frivolous lawsuits have frivolous?
Well, this is the third time I've been evicted.
The third time the landlord has gone after him. I've seen some of this stuff. I mean,
they just don't like him, or they need his apartment.
No, they.
I'm a troublemaker.
Well, according to them, you're not. You're a tenant leader, and you're saying, I have certain rights. I'm standing up for my rights.
Sure.
You know, it was the same with me. My landlord decided. You know, they're not little kings. These aren't little fiefdoms. Right. But that's what they.
Yeah, but somebody would have had to rat him out and say, "Well, I saw him holding the door."
No,
they just can't say he's holding the door or to blame it on him.
It doesn't matter. They're just making stuff up. Most of the stuff makes some sort of twisted sense, because the propaganda has a certain internal logic.
Sure.
You know, and I'm gonna bring some of that out. Let me get to one of the deceptive practices, because here's what Manhattan and the Bronx and Brooklyn need to know. If you're being prosecuted by the Bronx District Attorney's Office, if Assistant District Attorney Linda Tacoma is the ADA in your case, call Lydia Radin, because I'll discredit her.
Sure.
If you're being prosecuted in Manhattan by Detective Cologne from the 34th Precinct, or District Attorney Vance, or Assistant District Attorney Alex Spiro, or if Michelle Bayer happens to have a hand in your case as a trial supervisor, or if your judge is Judge Edward J. McLaughlin.
Yes.
Call Lydia Radin, because I will discredit these criminals. If you happen to be in Brooklyn and you're being prosecuted, please call Lydia Radin, because the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office made a 5 to 6 page investigative report based on Gilbert Polinsky's curiosity.
That was the evil wife, Harriet?
Unbelievable. I played that audio tape.
Yep.
I was curious about you, Lydia, so I had you investigated. You had me investigated based on your curiosity. You just violated my constitutional rights.
You know, man, out of curiosity, if you put your name into that Google, I mean, you got like over 2 million results.
Good.
I mean, is that all lawsuits, or is that, where do you get 2 million results from?
I'm staying with Mrs. Povanetti and her landlord, Gilbert Polinsky.
Yeah, I know, an evil Harriet, I know.
Right.
And they wouldn't give it a correct rent bill, I know.
Aside from that, Harriet Polinsky...
I thought she was your friend now, all of a sudden. The last few weeks, you wouldn't let me call her evil.
Harriet Polinsky would have drafted an illegal contract if she could. And in fact, the illegal lease that was signed, I mean, that's so disgusting. You signed a lease that said you couldn't make counterclaims. You signed a lease that said that you had no right to a jury trial. Harriet Polinsky is an attorney. She knows that's illegal.
It's unconstitutional on the face.
You know, I think, don't they have a New York standard lease?
They should.
Yes. They do. I know they do. It's when I've been signing standard leases all my life. I don't understand
how do they get away with this? You know, that's a really good question, and thank you for asking it. Because one of the things that I did is I went to Anthony Borowski at the Brooklyn District Attorney's Action Center, and Ms. Povanetti, Betty Povanetti, sat down with Anthony Borowski, and we tried to discuss this with him. And Anthony Borowski, and you know from my Eric Martindale interview, was like, "But Betty, you know, you agreed to this, didn't you? I mean, you're trying to
That's the spin.
You're trying to gaslight a little 82-year-old lady into thinking she has no constitutional rights."
Is she in Jersey?
No, this is New York.
Oh, Povanetti's in New York.
Yeah, this is Brooklyn.
Because, you know, not only do we have a New York standard lease, but now the leases are legible, I mean, in plain English. They don't have those complicated terms anymore. This is by law.
Good.
And as a matter of fact, the leases are so standard that when they give you a lease to renew, they just give you one little piece of paper that says, "I agree to the last lease. Just that we're changing the dates and the rate of rent." That's all it is.
Right,
they don't even give you a new lease to read. They just say, "Follow my old lease."
Yeah, and they tried to lie about that too. But the bottom line is, you know, when we were in court with Harriet Polinsky and her husband, Gilbert Polinsky, these are attorneys. Harriet would have drafted an illegal contract, and the illegal contract that she wanted to draft was that she would always be paid the rent,
Sure.
but that if the repairs to the apartment weren't made, then rent could not be withheld. And she knows that that's illegal.
Yeah, that is illegal.
Because one of the weapons, or the few weapons that a tenant has, is to withhold rent until the landlord does repairs.
Yes.
Does everybody else in her building have that same lease?
You know, God knows what they have, but I know Gilbert Polinsky.
I mean, if she's the only one in the building with that lease, I've never heard of anything like this.
It's ridiculous. You know, Gilbert Polinsky was like, they told so many lies. But listen, it's 6:25, and I want to get to his 16 minutes with his attorney, with Vince. But one of the deceptive practices that Linda Tacoma used, now, if you're out there in the viewing audience, Detective Ranigan at the 34th Precinct already got an admission of guilt from Assistant District Attorney Linda Tacoma, that she lied in my case. In my case, there's what she didn't tell Congressman Weiner was that there is a 1-year fraud discovery rule for criminal prosecution, and there's a 2-year fraud discovery rule in my underlying civil claims.
So it was a lie by omission, or?
Yeah, that's right. It's a lie by omission. And what she does is when she was talking to Congressman Weiner's office, or when she was communicating information, and this is one of the deceptive practices, is they'll read to paragraph 1. But they won't go down to paragraph 2 or paragraph 3. They'll just sort of, it's incomplete information.
Yes.
So Linda Tacoma already made up the excuse that said, oh, well, she screwed up. She didn't screw up. She told the lies that were put in her mouth.
Okay. Oh, so you said she lied. She didn't lie. She just admitted to screwing up.
Yeah, she admitted to, I made a mistake. No, you didn't. She's a prosecutor with over 22 years of experience.
Right, of course. Prosecutors not going to admit that they lied.
Of course they can't, but they did. And they lied to a congressman's office. So when the district attorney lies to a Congress, the flow of information is manipulated so that you can mislead an elected official so he can make the wrong decision. That's very serious because that's the big picture here. So one of the deceptive practices, and I'm going to change the camera view right here, is you'll see, just to get an overall gestalt, is that, you know, what Linda Tacoma, Assistant District Attorney Linda Tacoma, is what she does is she'll quote up here, the top, right? A prosecution for a felony must be commenced within 5 years after the commission of the felony. But what she doesn't do is read down and say, well, notwithstanding that a prosecution for larceny committed by a person in violation of a fiduciary duty may be commenced within 1 year after the facts constituting such offense are discovered. So in plain English, in simple English, you know, there's a 1-year fraud discovery rule for criminal prosecution, but the overall gestalt, the overall deceptive practice is that Linda Tacoma will only read to, let's say, paragraph 1, but she won't give full, true, complete, and accurate information. So she doesn't read down to paragraph 2 and 3. So she lied to Congressman Weiner's office. So if you're in the Bronx and you're being prosecuted by the Bronx District Attorney, please call on me because I can discredit them. And Linda Tacoma has already admitted she didn't make a mistake. She told the lies that were put in her mouth. But here's the part and I discussed this with the U.S. Marshals this week, but here's the part that's really scary, Ben, is U.S. Marshal James Howard had a poster in his hands in November of 2009. He stated to me that he took photographs of this and passed the photographs to Judge Patterson. But where's the poster today? That poster was not thrown away. That's a lie.
Vanished.
That poster was not thrown away. Marshal Howard told me that poster was in his office for years. Okay, he didn't throw it away. That poster was given to someone. Who was it given to? And there's a reason why we're asking those questions. But Ben, what am I going to do about James Howard? I mean, it's nice, Marshal Howard, that you will correct the record at Elmhurst Hospital and admit that I am not a threat to the life of a federal judge. And by the way, you got to love how Patterson operates here. You call Patterson up and you say, Judge Patterson, I'm in prison because of the lies you told. You know, I'm in prison because of the lies that Marlene Abramova told. I'm in prison because of the lies that Yeshiva University told. and you can't get past his secretary, Mary. So I'm on the phone with Rikers Island saying, Mary, get me the marshals now. Right. I called the marshals. The marshals came to Rikers Island twice. That's why I'm alive today. And then Elmhurst Hospital falsifies a record that says I'm a threat to the life of a federal judge. So when the judge is caught lying and helping a school steal money in a federal student loan program, what is he calls the marshals and he lies to them. Oh, I'm so scared for my life. You're not scared for your life, dishonest Judge Robert P. Patterson Jr. You're just a dishonest federal judge that needs to be removed from the bench.
Yes.
But Ben, what do I do about Marshall Howard? He's trying really hard. And the problem is, Marshall Howard, if you'd called the Department of Justice in November of 2009 and you demanded that these 4 federal judges be removed
what does he want, though? Come on, in reality.
I never would have gone to prison, Marshall Howard, if you'd called the Department of Justice in November.
Beat the rap, Ben.
There was no rap. I wasn't doing anything wrong.
Well, that's the point I'm making. It didn't turn out that way, though.
So, Marshall Howard, how are you going to look me in the eye?
Sure.
How are you going to face me? How are you going to get the loyalty of your staff? Get on the phone, Marshall Howard, and call the Department of Justice.
Yeah.
I gave them an organizational chart. When the FBI lies, when the school lies, when the district attorney lies because he's an elected official and it's not a campaign contribution, it's a bribe.
It is.
Then U.S. Marshall Howard, you get on the phone and you say, but he can't.
Listen, I don't understand. Every week you expect these crooked bastards to admit what they do. Every week you believe that these judges and the secretaries and the Polinskis, everybody's going to say, yeah, I did it. Yeah, I cheated that woman. Yeah, I omitted certain things. When they submit the papers to Wiener's office, Wiener just reads what they submit. Wiener's not going to say to his secretary,
I don't even think Congress Wiener got them. I think his staff undermined. That's a good question because I was talking to a friend of mine today, and he's like, Lydia, you're like going to the Gambino family saying, hey, guess what?
Now you got that judge and DeFazio, that judge angry at you, so now you have to tread lightly if you ever cross into Jersey,
no, that's a really big issue because you were there.
Wait,
listen, just one second.
You get a speeding ticket, you're going there.
Just 1 second. You were with me on July 3rd.
I was.
2012. We went down to Summit Avenue.
We did.
And
Municipal court.
Municipal court. And I'm supposed to go to the public defender. You came to the public defender?
Yeah, we came to the office. You had to get her documents, Ben.
Is this in Jersey?
Yes,
in New Jersey,
okay.
Summit Avenue.
And you were with me when Officer Litchfield threatened me.
They ran her out. They grabbed her arm, nearly pushed her down the stairs, and I don't know how they get away with that.
They know you so well in that court that
they can do it.
Wait.
Did they do that? That's unbelievable.
Well, that's the question I asked.
Wow.
They
probably have your picture downstairs on the wall. Don't let this woman in here.
But the reason why this was done was because Judge Rodriguez, in June of 2008,
the chief judge, Ben.
Judge Rodriguez, in June of 2008, had an application. I made an application for a public defender.
That was a female judge, right?
Correct.
Yes,
Nestle A. Rodriguez. Just 1 second. I filled out an application for public defender in June of 2008.
Okay.
And I had to go before Judge Rodriguez and disclose. I was required to disclose financial information. I disclosed federal student loan fraud. It's on that application.
Right.
Judge Rodriguez had to sign a court order that would allow me to get a public defender. That application was deliberately taken out of the file that was given to me because they didn't want the connection to Judge Rodriguez, because Judge Rodriguez is responsible. She cooperated here in helping the school steal money from me. I gave Judge Rodriguez case law that showed that she, as a municipal court judge, could enforce federal statutes and stop the federal student loan fraud. She refused to do it. Now, it's so obvious that they're falsifying public court records by the sin of omission, because there's no way I would have gotten a public defender. There's no way that I would have been able to get a public defender unless Judge Rodriguez had signed the application saying it was okay. So when I went
Why wouldn't it be okay?
Because you just can't waltz in and get a public defender. You have to make an application. The application requires you to disclose. If I was a millionairess, there's no reason for me to get a public defender.
Right, of course. I'm sure they're going to ask if you have any money, right?
Right, exactly. So I was required in that application to disclose my financial situation.
Sure.
And once again, in June of 2008, in front of Judge Rodriguez and the Public Defender's Office, and this went to Andrew C. Abrams, who runs the Public Defender's Office. Everybody knew I'm a victim of federal student loan fraud.
Yes,
At 595 Newark Avenue, Rupert knew, Lawrence Sidoni knew, Judge Nino Falcone knew, my landlords knew. My landlords knew in February of 2007. So over a year later, when dishonest psychiatrist Vladimir Jelnov is like, oh, she thinks there's contact between her landlord-tenant case in Jersey and her federal case in New York that shows federal student loan fraud. Of course there is, you idiots. I discussed it in depth and detail with my landlords.
It's pretty obvious.
But you didn't know that because you're not with me 24/7.
Right.
So Vladimir Jelnov falsified the medical records in Jersey. These people are hoodlums. They're dangerous. And as recently as July 3rd, 2012,
yes,
you were my witness.
Yeah, I was there. I went to the municipal court with her. Yes.
You know, you can't bar me from the municipal courts saying I'm trespassing. I'm not trespassing. I have business in the court. The last time I went down there, I went to the prosecutor's office, the Jersey City Municipal Prosecutor's Office. They don't want me to know all the people who tried to press false criminal charges.
So you went into that building innocently to get some forms or something, right?
Right.
They threw you out?
Right.
Now, how far did you get into the building? You walked through the main door, then what? How far did you get through
we
security?
walked through the main door, and I have to go with a bodyguard like Bill because they would jump. If you weren't there, they would have jumped me.
I believe
They
that.
would have jumped. I had, this is the second time off of Jersey City Police
So you're
Office.
just going there to get some paperwork or forms, right?
Right. I had to get my file from the Public Defender's Office. The Jersey City Municipal Prosecutor is deliberately, maliciously, with criminal intent, not providing my file. So when I
you just walk in the door, you go through the metal detector, right?
Correct. And then you go up the stairs.
Right.
You go up the
The
stairs.
second floor.
And I go to the
you
public.
got to the stairs. You went up the stairs.
Go to the Public Defender's Office. They give me the file.
Right.
You
They
know,
gave you the file. They gave you the file.
Right, with Mary Lou, and before I left, I opened the file because I'm like,
Yes.
I'm not even walking out without my witness. Look, I went through everything in that file.
Yeah,
with
yeah,
you.
you checked
I don't
it
want to
out.
be accused of removing anything.
Right.
So not
I
only
mean, what do you mean they give you the? They give you actual paper files? Or
they gave me an envelope full.
And they
of,
have a disc.
they gave me an envelope with papers, and I went through every page
Right.
in front of you. Is
Right.
that correct?
And you're supposed to give it back to them, right?
No, this was my copy.
Oh, your copy. All right.
And I went through every single one in front of them.
Right.
You were watching as I went through.
They were in the hall doing the same
We
thing.
were out in the hall doing it, but before I even left the building, I'm like, I'm doing this in front of a witness. I did this in front of Bill. We went through each and every page.
What difference would that make?
Because I get falsely accused.
Of
So,
what? Of opening your own file?
oh, you're making stuff up, blah blah. Dan Rizal is a dishonest attorney who makes up all
Yeah,
kinds.
just go in there to get your papers, though. I mean,
Right.
what
So I
could-
go
how could
in
you
there,
get
and the
a-
next thing I know is a Jersey City police officer Litchfield, and he was pushing me.
Yeah, practically pushing them down the stairs.
And I'm like, oh, I'm on there. And I'm like,
I
take
never
your
saw that in
hands
my
off
life.
me. Stop pushing me. And everybody knows, I have a bad back. I have
It
5.
just seems like there's something missing here. I don't know what. Maybe someday when I have that Jameson with Bill, he'll explain to me what actually happened in that hallway. Because I don't understand how if you got your paperwork, you went there to get the paperwork they gave you, you should take the damn thing and get the hell out of there.
Well, no, because the first thing I want to do is go through that paperwork. So I went through that paperwork with you. We went through it page by page.
Yeah,
And
but if you walk out of the place, you can't go back and say, like, you go back to a McDonald's and say, yeah, you gave me $1 too little, I mean,
no,
once
I
you're
went
out of
through
there,
the
you're out of
paperwork.
there.
And
They're
when
not going to, no matter what
when
you
I
say, they're
discovered
going to
that that application was missing, did I not say that to you?
You did.
I said it to Bill. I said it to you.
Yes,
didn't
you
I?
did.
And I said,
No, I
look,
know,
Bill,
so
the
if you would've-
application here, the application for a public defender is missing, and the reason why it's missing is because I disclosed the federal student loan fraud, and Judge Rodriguez signed
You
it.
going there specifically for that paper?
No, I went in to see my file, and the reason I went to the public defender's office was because the Jersey City Municipal Prosecutor refused to give me my file.
Yeah.
So I discussed this with the marshals, and they said, go to the public defender's office.
Which
So
you
I go
did.
to the public defender's office, I get my file, page by page, I went through each and every one, and as I discovered that document was missing, I talked about
You were
it
in
to
the
you.
hallway. You weren't sitting on the floor, were you?
No.
it was on a desk in the, and then out in the hall we were on the windowsill.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it doesn't matter because the bottom line is, we discovered this, and as I'm trying to go back to the public defender's office and say, what's going on here? Please give me my complete file. Detective, Jersey City Police Officer Litchfield says, keep moving. If you don't keep moving, I'm going to arrest you. That man would have arrested me.
I mean, he was looking for you specifically, or he just figured you were in there already?
No, they were looking for me specifically.
I believe so. Yeah, they came up specifically for her, and I don't know.
So somebody
must
in
have
the
been
office
called
must
up
have said,
there.
"This troublemaker's back here again. Go get her."
No, the bottom line is Judge Rodriguez committed crimes, and she doesn't want anybody to know.
Of course. What do you expect? You just said there. You just said it. What judge wants anybody to know of any crime they commit? Anyone? I mean, come on. Like my whole point of this.
I'm with you there, Ben.
My whole point of this is that the judges, and this is Judge
Did you
Frank.
actually leave with your file when they threw you out?
Yes.
You took it. You took the file.
Yeah, I had the file.
And everything was there except that application.
No, there's other missing documents too. But as I went through page by page, something. It's 6:40, and
We're
I
running
got.
short, Ben.
Yeah, I
right.
promised Vince that I would play his video.
That's my lawyer,
I'll
Ben.
give you a call. Good luck on whatever you're doing here. All right.
Okay, well, stay tuned because what we're going to do is we're going to look at Vince right now. So,
Okay.
what Bill is doing is he's going to go into court and he's going to carry some of the initiatives that I started
I'm
forward.
going to carry the ball forward. All right.
So let's look at that.
All right. Here's my lawyer, Ben.
All right.
Here we go. So we're going to,
The interview.
yes, let's do, this is,
Vincent Ansetti. Do you have video music?
yeah, wait just 1 second. Hold on. I want to increase the view to enter full screen. Here we go.
There we go.
And
Stay tuned.
let's play.
Okay.
Hi, we're here today in Jersey City with Mr. Vincent Ansetti, the attorney for Bill Dorrity, for William Dorrity. And I just happened to grab you, Vince. You're dashing out the door, and we just wanted to hammer down a few points in Bill Dorrity's case. He's being, as it was explained to me, he's being taken to court by his landlord. His landlord is taking him to court to evict him for a groundless reason. As it was explained to me in our conversations, the landlord says that Bill let people into the building. And the bottom line is there was a person who gained entry into Bill's building. Bill didn't know about it. When he found out that person was in the building, he called the police. So to have the landlord evict him for this is just groundless. So Bill knows he's going to win, and because he's going to court, he thinks this is a wonderful opportunity to establish some case law to meet 4 really good objectives. So this has happened to Bill before. He's been taken to court before. Why is this landlord taking him to court for these?
I think it's another frivolous attempt, frivolous cause of action by this landlord for trying to get rid of a tenant's rights advocate that's there to protect the tenant. And someone that's shown the leadership in this building to stand up for their rights. And obviously this landlord doesn't like it.
Okay, so you feel that this is a retaliatory gesture by the landlord?
Well, we've been in, you probably know, we've discussed this, but you know this as well as I do. We've been in court on multiple occasions in the past on these kind of meritless, frivolous actions from it by the landlord, and we beat them before, we'll beat them again.
Good. So Bill is using this opportunity to establish case law, and he's got 4 objectives, and those objectives are to get independent cameras in the courtroom, to when he wins, he's going to be asking the judge to award him attorney's fees. So he's going to be asking, as a tenant, for his right to recover attorney's fees. He's going to be asking for enforcement of truth in renting laws. He was not provided with the truth in renting booklet as the landlord is required to give him by law. And you astutely pointed out that it's not even posted in the building, and it should be. And Bill is using this opportunity to ask on a local level and to support a statewide effort by New Jersey State Senator Brian Stack to have security guards in the courtroom. And I should also mention that Brian Stack has proposed a new law. This is New Jersey State Senator Brian Stack, that would allow tenants to recover attorney's fees. Is all this correct?
That's correct, and I can address one by one if that's something you want me to do.
Sure.
The truth in renting laws, if they were enforced, there would be a $100 fee per tenant on the landlord for not providing this booklet. If this booklet was provided, their tenants would know their rights, be able to defend themselves. I would defend their rights as they should. And this building in particular, there's 300 units, right? So at $100 a piece, it's $30,000. The city would benefit from that. The tenants would benefit from that because they'd know their rights. They would be enforced. The landlord would be punished or sanctioned against the landlord, and it would compel them to do the right thing in the future.
So the city of Jersey City could actually raise $30,000 in revenue from one building just
They enforce the truth in renting. They would.
Very good. When you win, Bill is, and there's no question you're going to win, you're very confident that this is a groundless action.
We're very confident. Yeah, we're going to.
Okay. So because, it's not Bill's responsibility as a tenant to let people in the building or not let people into the building. He is not a security guard. So when you win, you're going to be asking the judge to award attorney's fees to Bill so that the landlord can't use these frivolous actions to keep milking Bill for attorney's fees. Well, I'm not trying to be critical, but,
true.
In my case, and I don't mean to drag me into this, but in my case, I was living in a building with 3 other families. They could not afford attorney's fees, and they couldn't get legal aid to take their cases, so they were literally driven out of the building because they couldn't afford to keep going to court with frivolous action after frivolous action. This is a tactic that some landlords use against tenants. So Bill feels that if he can establish as case law that when he wins as a tenant, he gets to recover attorney's fees too, that's another protection for tenants. Is that correct?
I think the first step would be the inception of the lease. If tenants would review it, they would see that the landlord is entitled to receive attorney fees if they prevail for the prevailing party in action against the tenant for, say, non-payment of rent, which makes sense, and that's understandable why that's in there. However, on the flip side of it, there is no provision in any of these, at least that I've ever seen, at least in New Jersey, that affords a tenant the right to collect on attorney fees for money they spent out to protect their interests and their rights in a landlord-tenant action. So, if you don't mind to go further on that, elaborate on that. If one, the tenant should review that lease at the inception, and then in demand or insist that provision of similar to that be implemented into the original lease before they sign it. So. That's number one. Number two, in this case in particular, obviously Mr. Dorrity has been in the premises for a significant period of time, so he didn't have those, he wasn't advised of that when he entered into this lease. So what we're going to do is we're going to request from, or demand for that matter, attorney fees from the judge in this case, and Judge Marin in landlord-tenant, based on this frivolous action brought by the landlord, as we have in the past, and we will continue to as these in the future, these types of actions or cause of action are brought against Mr. Dorrity.
So right now, Bill's lease is written to protect the landlord. If the landlord wins against a tenant, he would be able to ask the judge to recover his attorney's fees, but all the leases in New Jersey don't have that language to protect tenants. So what you're hoping to do in this case is to even the playing field so that tenants can recover attorney's fees, and you're trying to get basic fairness for tenants. So that, and you're asking tenants to look at their leases, and if your lease is written that says, and all leases are in New Jersey, if the landlord wins, he can ask to recover his attorney's fees, he can ask to be made whole again, and the same protection should be put there for tenants. We shouldn't have leases drafted where one party gets all the benefits and the other party doesn't. We should have basic fairness, and a level playing field. And if when you get this for Bill, you will be establishing case law, this is why you're a great big hero, you will be establishing case law that New Jersey State Senator Brian Stack can point to or reference to, because he's proposing a new law on the state level that would give tenants the rights to recover attorney's fees too, as a basic fairness issue. Is that correct?
It is correct, and until legislative movement is passed, think tenant awareness is most important. Hopefully, and we can all push for this legislation to go through where it becomes that each lease, every lease out there should, you say even the playing field. I think that's a good expression to use. That both tenants and landlords should be afforded similar rights.
Absolutely, because the ability to pay for an attorney should never be a bar to justice.
Well said.
So far, what you're driving for is enforcement of truth in renting laws, tenants' rights to recover attorney's fees too in successful action against their landlords, and you want independent cameras in the courtroom. Bill has invited me there because, again, well, first of all, we should preference our remarks by saying a precedent has already been set in the state of New Jersey by the Jersey Journal. They went in and filmed Mayor Healy's case. So Bill has invited me in to film his case. And one of the reasons he wants independent cameras in the courtroom is because it protects the integrity of the process. It's not unheard of that you can manipulate a judge, that you can manipulate attorneys, that the transcript could be manipulated, and you could, in order to protect from the potential corruption of the courts and protect the integrity of the system, Bill wants independent cameras in the courtroom.
I think in addition to protection of the integrity of the judicial process is also, there's elderly, there's disabled tenants out there that are in this building in particular, 3060 Kennedy Boulevard, that will never have the opportunity nor the means to be in the courtroom to see what happens. And I think, again, that's one of the most significant benefits to having cameras in the courtroom.
And that's an excellent point, because Bill's building is made up solely of disabled people and elderly people. They can't get to the courtroom. They should be able to see what's going on. Okay, so thank you so much. We're driving forward these the four objectives in Bill's case: independent cameras in the courtroom, tenants' rights to recover attorney's fees, enforcement of truth in renting laws. And that booklet is supposed to be provided both in English and Spanish. In Hudson County is.
That's a perfect example where it should be in both.
Hudson County is 40% Spanish, so that information needs to be in both English and Spanish. And Bill is using this case to ask.
I'm going to go to the fourth point, and I apologize.
Go ahead.
That I was talking to you about was the security guard. I think that I think it's important for the audience to realize that in this particular instance, there's a landlord that doesn't provide a security guard other than from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. in 3060 Kennedy Boulevard, for example. Those other 16 hours, which is one of the reasons, maybe the most significant reason, that the landlord is bringing these allegations again, utilizing that what you had already mentioned, that someone was let into the premises, say without permission, but that's their allegation at least, right? Mr. Dorrity didn't have the permission to allow somebody into the premises.
But he didn't. So somebody came in.
Well, you know what? If there was a security guard there, they would have been restricted from access anyway. But that's beside the point. In this particular instance, he didn't. He called the police when he found out the person was already in the premises. However, again, using Mr. Doherty's case, the person's up on the 16th floor already. Mr. Doherty didn't let him in.
Right.
But he's already up on the 16th floor, and they're casting blame on Mr. Doherty, obviously. But that's a landlord's maybe their means to try and get rid of, obviously, again, we talked about earlier, is the tenants' rights advocate in their building, causing them, in their mind, a problem. They're utilizing this scenario as an opportunity, right? This would never be before the courts are even discussing this today if there was a security guard 24/7. And the way that would happen, and I know that you had mentioned to me, I think, doing your investigative research, was that in other cities and counties, they have
in Newark, for example, they had real-life experience. We went and asked the tenant leaders in Newark, and they said the tenants in Bill's building are operating under the misapprehension or the disinformation that they believe that if they had security guards 24/7, that their rents would go up.
Increase. Yeah, I've heard that before, and let's use this particular building at 36 Kennedy Boulevard. The approximately 300 tenants in this building. The 16-hour gap where there is no security guard at the front desk. Even if you take worst case, you're looking at 48 to 50,000 a year in salary for security guards to be there 24/7. Worst case, you're looking at say $10 to $13 increase in rent. Obviously, legislative movements to ensure that the tenants won't have to pay any additional rent is certainly in play right now. But until those get passed, the worst case, we're talking about $10 to $13, not hundreds of dollars, which you had mentioned to me.
Bill's landlord is trying to scare the tenants into believing that if they had 24/7 security guards, that their rents would go up $100, $200, $300 a month. That's not true. First of all, it's a purely theoretical argument, and the worst case purely theoretical argument, by your calculation, maybe the rents would be increased up $10 to $13 a month, which is nominal. But the real world experience of tenants in Newark over a 2-year period, I think a 27-month period, when the landlords were forced into compliance to provide security guards, was that their rents did not go up, their quality of life got better, crime was reduced, the police were happy with the security guards for lots of reasons. So actually the landlord actually benefited by having 24/7 security guards. So one of the reasons why Bill is out there trying to give out trying to combat this disinformation campaign is that it's not true. The rents in the real world experience of tenants in Newark, New Jersey, rents did not go up when buildings were forced into compliance with 24/7 security guards. And we even got a statement from one of those tenant leaders, Eric Martindale, said that's not true. So for lots of reasons, Bill feels that even though he's being taken to court for a frivolous reason, somebody gained access to the building and now the landlord is blaming Bill, when in fact Bill's the guy who called the police and said this guy shouldn't be here. So now he's being taken to court with this retaliatory gesture, and rather than being upset by it, he's a hero. And he's saying, this is a marvelous opportunity for me to meet 4 really good objectives that we've discussed a little bit today. So let's just finish up by reviewing those. Bill is going to get independent cameras in the courtroom, and thank you, Jersey Journal, for already setting that precedent. He wants to establish a tenant's rights to recover attorney's fees too. He wants enforcement of truth in renting laws as a tool to raise revenue to help the city help tenants. And he wants security guards in the building. Those are your 4 objectives?
I think in this particular case, I think those 4 objectives can be not only brought to light, but accomplished. So yes, those are our 4 objectives.
Terrific. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll be there on court day.
I look forward to it.
Thank you.
And that was Vince.
That was Vince. That's my lawyer, people.
Wait just 1 second. Hold it. Okay, there we are. We're back.
We're back.
And we're going to be out in like 30 seconds. So that was Vince, and we're going to be talking to Vince some more.
We are.
The Jersey Journal has already, Vince was like, hey, the Jersey Journal has independent cameras in the courtroom all the time.
Yep.
I'm like, yeah, but in case there's a media blackout, because, they don't want me there.
Sure.
I'm going to be bringing an independent camera in the courtroom. What can they possibly say?
Right.
The Jersey Journal is allowed in so
Right.
they can control the news.
Sure.
So you've invited me into the court.
I have.
And we'll be there on court day. So if we get independent cameras in the courtroom in Jersey, and there are no independent cameras allowed in the courtroom in New York, how come the litigants in Jersey get this protection, but the ones in New York don't? That doesn't seem fair to me.
Well, I'm sure one event is going to affect the events in the New York too, obviously.
We're out.